Today I'm joined by David Reed. David is the owner and managing director of Flexible Lab Solution, who build innovative automation systems to suit all laboratory requirements that upgrade processes and increase output. So welcome, David.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for joining us. So, David, tell us a little bit more about Flexible Lab Solutions and what you do.
Okay, well, Flexible Lab Solutions has been quite a convoluted journey. We started as a spin out from the Pfizer UK site when that closed back in 2011, and decided we were going to start a business as a automation rental company, which had its advantages, but wasn't necessarily successful as a business model. And from there we really progressed into doing refurbished automation integration. We were working with one of the major suppliers who ultimately decided that they would no longer operate within that market and remove some of their products and services from that. So we're left in this dilemma of how do we move the business forward? And so around sort of 2016, we started developing our own products, looking for solutions outside the sort of one-stop shop, and working and partnering with multiple companies for hardware, software, ultimately moving on to developing a lot of our own hardware, and partnering with a company called Waker Automation for software, which is a Fujifilm owned company based over in the US, who do all of our software. So we've really sort of transitioned from that sort of small spin out up to one of the sort of UK's leading integrators for automation. And really all of what we're doing is focused around automating workflows for the life science industry. But we can work within anything really that is working with laboratory consumables, mainly in SBS format, but anything that revolves around that. So we build everything from, we have our small sort of entry-level smart deck system, which goes on top of an existing user's bench and is sort of automation friendly for those users that are still really starting to start that journey for themselves. Right up through to, we have very large and huge systems which are called our Smart Cell 2 system, and that's a huge integrated laboratory work cell with multiple robots automating multiple processes at once, and can be interlaced with different processes so that the users can really get the most from the footprint of their lab. That's the idea. Is space is expensive, so people want to try and get the most out of it. So it's and the industry's changed from when I entered the industry and started out sort of in my apprentice days at Pfizer and transitioned through to research, where the main motivator for automation was throughput, whereas now we're seeing big changes. So data integrity being the biggest one because of all of the introduction of AI and data analysis tools using AI. So there's been some huge changes in the last 5 years, really.
I bet, yeah, absolutely. Particularly as you say with AI, and I was looking at your website before we came on here, and it was great sort of seeing the images of the robots moving and the things that they were doing. It really gives you an insight into what you do from a layman's point of view.
Yeah.
So you mentioned there about so I think you said about 2011 was when you went into business. Why? Had you always thought about being a business owner, David? Is it something you always wanted to do, or was it because I think you said there, or I read that Pfizer closed down its operations in the area that you were working. So was it forced from that, or had you always wanted to be a business owner?
I get asked this question all the time. So the honest answer to it is yes, I had always considered, as I think everyone does, or wouldn't it be lovely to have your own business? Yeah. But if I'm brutally honest, would I have started my own business? I don't think that I would. Pfizer was a fabulous company. It was great to work for. I was doing pretty well there, and yeah, I think had things continued as we'd all expected them to, no, I probably would have stayed on in my current role. But do I ever look back with any negative connotations around that? No, I think it forced me to do something which has ultimately gone on to be incredibly rewarding. Um, it has its ups and downs, as any business owner will tell you.
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately, it's led on to some of the better parts and avenues that I've gone into that I never would have expected to before. So no, it's been a hugely rewarding adventure.
And is it, we've all, when we go into business and we set up our own business, we've got these images of what we want it to be like, what we expect it to be like. Has it been what you expected, or has it turned out to be different? I know you sort of said it's been a great journey and fantastic, but was it what you expected when you went into being a business owner?
So from a point of view of the actual business that we set out to do, no. From a point of view of business, I don't really know if I ever thought about what to expect. I think we just sort of blindly barreled into into a business, and then really just took whatever opportunities were out there. I mean, there are certain aspects that I ultimately undervalued for my entire career, such as network. So that the ability to leverage network is just incredible. And obviously, with that fragmentation of Pfizer and all of my network being quite localized, but then moving out into further fields, that has been seismic in helping FLS to grow, find new opportunities, and just get into places that perhaps under any different guys, maybe we wouldn't have managed to achieve that. So again, yeah, I think it really was. I didn't know what to expect. So it's a very hard question to answer.
Yeah, no. So, well, to be honest, that's often what I hear from business owners. They didn't know what to expect. They just sort of started out the business, and then what materialized. And look, businesses transition. You said there that you started out as one thing and it transitioned. But I think one of the biggest examples of that is Amazon, isn't it? Amazon started out as the world's largest bookstore or something, and now they sell anything and everything. So it's adapted and moved. So okay, so look, you've been incredibly successful since 2011. Did you start out with just you and a colleague? Because am I right in saying that you've got roughly about 11 employees at the moment, or
there's about 13 employees now.
13 employees. Okay, so yeah, did you start out with just you, or just you and a colleague, and how's it grown over the years?
Yeah, I mean, very organically is the answer to that. It was myself and my senior engineer. So I was the automation systems manager for Pfizer UK, and then the senior engineer, who was also based at the sandwich site, also didn't want to go and look for work elsewhere. And so we started out as the two guys, and we often we're still actually in the same office. We have the same, but the actual bit that was just at our entire presence on site is now just the main office.
Yeah.
But we always laugh about how we sort of had these two massive offices with one desk and one chair in them each. I think we've got huge, like six tables in each of these offices now, and just pallets of equipment and everything that we thought we might need piled up in a sort of space in the corner that was not particularly easy to access. I mean, and we just really evolved from there. So you always sort of think, how can I grow the business? And it just really the harder we tried, more business came to us, and it just organically grew. So we just found ourselves needing a bit more space. We expanded into a warehouse facility. We needed a bit more space for a build area. We expanded into a secondary office area on the Kent Science Park. And then as we grew up in numbers again, we had to reconfigure the office to optimize it for two reasons actually. One, to fit more staff in, and two, to get the most out of the space in today's hybrid flexible working model. So bit of hot desking and things like that. So.
Yeah, the way we work these days is changed, and I think sort of COVID sort of sped that process up. I think it was always going to happen, but it spread that process up. So what challenges, or what's the biggest challenge that you've faced along that sort of journey that you've experienced of starting out a business, growing a business? What would you say the biggest challenge you've faced is?
I think it's been moving, and still to some extent is that phase that we're in now, is moving from a company that is really pressing your head against the sort of liner of what you can achieve, without really targeting expansion. And the huge part of that is getting yourself known. We had a big sort of drive sort of post COVID just to be an option where people were looking for automated workflows, and naturally they will go to the big players in the market. There's some pretty big guys out, even though it's actually quite a small market, as in there's probably only about, I mean, it has grown. So probably around 10 suppliers now doing what we do. There are 3 sort of big dominating parties. And so it's making sure that you're in amongst that and trying to get your customer groups to understand what it is that you offer different. And of course, what we actually offer is that personable, customer service focused delivery. But of course, everyone says that is what they're focusing. So you have to find ways of really emphasizing and highlighting that to your customers. We do find once we gain a customer, I think we've lost one customer in 11 years.
Yeah, that's a pretty good record to have. And I often get asked this by my clients in terms of how do they compete with the bigger people in their industry, because those people have got a lot of money to spend on marketing and they might be the natural place to go to. So, you mentioned a little bit there in terms of how you compete, but what would you say, I guess your USP or your point of difference is that you highlight to compete with those larger players in the market?
Yeah, and a lot about that is about making sure that we stay firmly focused on what the customer actually asked us to deliver, not what we want to deliver.
Yeah.
That's one of the key points, and often is lost on a lot of the big corporates. That's probably the weakest link in their chain is, and also making sure that we do things differently, making sure that we don't take that easy option, we don't take that quick win. You basically use our flexibility, and being a small company, you can be nimble, you can make decisions very, very quickly that a large organization either couldn't sanction from a financial perspective, so an accountant's going to say no somewhere, or they just can't arrive at that decision fast enough to be a viable option to make that decision. And so we make sure we leverage that wherever possible, and just generally try and delight our customers. And it's so far it's been pretty successful. And as I say, the customers that we have keep coming back. It's just the scaling now that is the objective that we need. So the next obstacle to tackle.
I think the easiest business to get is repeat business, isn't it? And I think sometimes businesses can forget that. They focus on getting new clients, but actually, if we look after our existing clients in an incredible way, they'll keep coming back to us, and that's the easiest business to get. And then the second easiest business to get is to get referrals from our existing clients, create raving fans, so they're telling everybody how great you are and how brilliant it is working with you, and you get those referrals. So I can understand if you look after your existing customers, they'll come back to you and they'll refer other people to you. And that seems in line. So I was reading, I always like to do a bit of research before these discussions, and I saw that the values that you highlight on your website are: we are customer-centric, future-focused, and flexible.
Absolutely.
And is that something? How important is it for you to have those values in the business and have them? As I say, I saw them on your website, so have them very clear. This is what we stand for.
Absolutely, I mean, it's absolutely core to everything that FLS do. I mean, I always actually say we're not actually a technology company; we're a customer service company. So first and foremost, we're about customer service. We just happen to be dealing in the technology business. So it's been the core of what FLS that has been built on and will always be, and is also some of it's some of the throttle to actual growth. So I think if you are less concerned about your reputation, if you are prepared to jeopardize or maybe be more driven in how you focus and target sales, then you can grow faster. But ultimately is that, and that's my sort of mantra is always, I have to be able to want to be part of this, because I'm proud to be part of it. If I'm not proud to be part of it, then I'm probably not going to be part of it anymore.
Yeah, I think I think when you've got true values, when under no circumstances would you jeopardize those values. Not even for growth. You wouldn't jeopardize those core values that you have. And one of the great pictures that I love, that that's you can Google this, or anybody can listening to this can Google this on is there's a picture of I think it's like the lobby of Enron. And on the wall, it's got their values, and it says values like integrity and honesty and these sort of things. And in the picture are the directors of Enron being led out in handcuffs by the FBI. And it's basically sort of saying, look, you can have your values up on the wall, but actually you've really got to live. You've got to live them. And that's a great example of a company that actually just had the values written down, but was everybody in the organization living them, and really felt they were part of it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I think it's a great picture to see.
It's a great example.
Yeah. So look, what's the biggest learning that you've had since you've been in business?
Oh, I guess that's a tricky one to answer. What would be the biggest learning? I think that you have to trust in your staff. So I think again, when and if you do value your business, you do tend to hold on to it a little bit too tightly sometimes. So you do, and you have to accept that if someone else makes a mistake or fumbles with those values, that doesn't reflect on you, as long as you then action what was the cause of that, and make sure that you're putting preventative measures in there to make sure everyone is still working to the core value and not allowing that to become the new norm. So I would say that's been the biggest learning, is how to, and we're still very much in that phase, is how do we grow at the right pace for the company, what is the right pace, and I'm not even sure we have the answer to that yet. So
And that look, I think you've highlighted a challenge there that often business owners face, is particularly, as you say, with growth, is actually trusting their team, trusting the staff to do what needs to be done, and can they do it as well as you can do it, and are they because it's your business, so therefore you're more passionate about it. Are they as passionate as you? But without trusting the team around you, it's very difficult to grow. You've got to be prepared to actually effectively delegate.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One of there's a number of keys around that, but it is, the first one is recruiting the right team, isn't it? Making sure that you've got a great recruitment system to make sure that you're recruiting the team, and then it's about training the team and having the right processes and systems in place. Look, I think that's a challenge that quite often people face. And you said there that it's something that you're coming to, you're gradually sort of coming to terms with in terms of that pace of growth. But is there any particular thing that you can think of that you sort of dealt with in the past that you thought, actually, this will help me overcome this issue of making sure I trust my team to do what they need to do so that we can grow?
I think one of the biggest, and I carried that really through from Pfizer, was rather than try and go out and target the right person for the job, because every job is different, every job within every company is different, is to try and find the right person and then train that person with the correct values of the company, and maybe perhaps where they might even be lacking in some of the skills. It's better to have a trustworthy individual than a more highly skilled individual that really maybe has their own agenda or isn't really interested in sticking within the company's values. So, and that really is a big takeaway from Pfizer. I learned that where the company were very good at backing their staff, believing in their staff, and I just really brought that sort of into flexible lab solutions with me. So it's yeah.
No, I think that's I think that's great advice, and I think I always believe in recruiting people on attitude rather than aptitude, because
Absolutely.
as you were saying there, you can teach and train them to do a particular role, But if they've got the wrong attitude, that's really difficult to change. So
Yeah,
focus on
absolutely.
attitude rather than aptitude. And it also brings to mind, David, the very old school type of leading and managing um, was well, it's sort of called command and control. So the old school ways where it's very much control people, tell them what to do. The new way of thinking with leadership and management is trust and inspire.
Absolutely.
Trust
Yeah.
people and inspire them. And there's a great book by Stephen Covey that talks about this in terms of the difference between the two and how you change an organization into trust and inspiring the team members. So that what you've said there really links into that. So I like that, David. So look, there's one question, David, that I always like to ask people that are kind enough to join me on this business spotlight is, what is the best advice that you would give to an 18-year-old you?
Oh, to an 18-year-old me. I mean, yeah, that is a tricky question, that one, isn't it? So, I mean, I think if I mean, obviously, if I could go back and now look at some of the opportunities that perhaps I missed out on because of that, maybe not quite as much belief in myself as perhaps I should have done, or as a transition to the business, I definitely felt that there were times when you felt like maybe you hadn't found out what the secret was, rather than actually you could offer something different. You could offer something value, until the right person comes along and says, "This is great value. This adds value to what we do." So I think the biggest bit of advice would be to try and seek that out before, rather than waiting for the opportune moment in which someone told me, "Look, this adds value." Because, as I say, from a company point of view, I probably wouldn't have started Flexible Lab Solutions and moved on to that. But there are definitely parts where I feel like, I mean, in hindsight, I've maybe held the company back by being too steady or a little bit too cautious, or just maybe not trusting that I've assessed the entire scenario. And I think sometimes, and that's one of my biggest learning curves in business, sometimes you just have to just float out there a little bit and see what comes. So
Yeah, that's good advice. So, like, the thing that I picked up there from what you've sort of said is believe in yourself, trust yourself. Um, be open to opportunities that are out there. Look for those opportunities that are out there, and don't be afraid to take advantage of them.
yeah,
That's what I picked up from what you said there, which I
yeah,
think
yeah. I mean,
great.
the biggest for me, obviously, I did protect my network. The biggest advice I would give to any other 18-year-old is build your network, build your skills.
Yeah.
It's the people around you that will carry you through.
Surround yourself by great people. I always think is, whether that's your team, your wider network, but surround yourself by great people. And
Yeah, I don't hugely go into business advice, but because everyone's got when you start out in business, you get bombarded with people trying to sell you advice, give you advice. You spend more time trying to work out what the secondary the sort of motive is than actually the advice itself. But someone that I do respect once said to me, "We're all stood on the shoulders of giants," and that has stuck with me throughout. So no matter how much you grow, everyone's still really stood on the learnings, development, and no one's really doing that much new. We're just taking the skills and adapting them, maybe.
I think, look, I like that. Again, I like that. We're all standing on, the shoulders of giants,
Yeah,
which I think is sort of so true. And I think you're right. I think the thing with advice is actually there is loads of advice out there. And I think we need to be open to the advice that's out there. But then we need to pick the bits of that advice that work for us. Because, as you quite rightly say, everybody's got their own ways of doing things, their different advice. But I always think it's right. Listen to people that have seen it, done it, whatever it may be, and then pick the bits out of that are right for you. Because we can learn from people. We've always got lots to learn. So, well, look,
absolutely.
David, look, thank you very much for sharing that. And I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today and sharing more about your business and also your journey. So thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, sir. Thank you very much.